Well, good morning, everybody, and welcome to all of you here and also online. And thank you for joining us today in this session called Putting Smallholder Farmers First. That is at the center of this session, and you could say it's also at the center of today. A sustainable agri-food and livestock system can mitigate the impacts of land degradation, enhance biodiversity, and small-scale farmers play an important role in food systems transformation amidst the climate crisis. In this session, we bring together small-scale farmers representatives, global coalitions, and policymakers to share their challenges, visions, and actions on how to increase support for investing in sustainable and healthy smallholder producers. With regard to public policymakers, I would like to especially welcome the Minister for Livestock and Fisheries from Tanzania, Mr. Abdallah Ulega. Welcome. And he will also join our panel later on. My name is Eelco Baan. I'm the SNV's global lead on inclusive markets and impact investment. And I'm very pleased to be the moderator of this session. My colleague Annemieke Beekmans was supposed to moderate this session, but she fell ill, unfortunately, and we wish her well. So, in terms of the logic of this session, we first have two speakers who will briefly make some opening remarks and set the scene. From here we continue with farmer representatives who share their challenges on climate action in agri-food and livestock systems. From the reality of the farmers, we then hear from a number of coalitions. They can share their perspective and also their call to action. And then with a panel of experts, including policymakers, we reflect and react to the challenges and actions needed. And then we have two speakers who will make some closing remarks. So first of all, I'm pleased to invite Namakulo Kovic. She is ILRI's Director General Representative to Ethiopia and also CGIAR Regional Director for East and Southern Africa to make some opening remarks.
Honorable Minister of Livestock from Tanzania, distinguished farmers on whom we depend for the food that we consume, distinguished partners, ladies and gentlemen, all protocols observed. On behalf of the International Livestock Research Institute, I am very pleased to welcome you today to this very important session. Now, I'm based in Ethiopia, where I am working, a country that is very much at the center of the issues we are going to discuss today, because it is a livestock country and also one that is facing immense climate challenges at the moment. So I am immersed in the challenges that you will be discussing today. In this session, we will be looking at how we can actually address the issue of climate change. How can we position livestock as part of food systems transformation, as an integral part of the solutions that we need? It is clear that livestock systems must change to mitigate harm to the climate, environment, and human health. But we need to do this in a way that is socially just and does not compromise their multiple benefits. That is, the multiple benefits that livestock brings to the different communities that we seek to serve. Not just in Africa, but also in Asia, we are expecting an increase in demand of livestock products because of rising income, but also because of the need for nutrition perspectives. However, we need to come up with solutions to make their efforts more sustainable. And so one of the things that we are facing is this double burden that farmers face. On the one hand, how the environmental damage that is possible from livestock is vilified, while on the other hand, we also have to recognize how farmers actually depend on livestock for their livelihoods, depend on livestock for nutrition, depend on livestock even to address health issues, because that's, in many cases, is a predominant livelihood and income earner. Livestock farmers and herders, therefore, face these multiple burdens. Not only are they impacted by climate, but of course, what they do can also have an impact on the climate, and so a balance is required. So in today's sessions, we will be looking at a number of potential pathways through which we can move towards a net zero livestock sector in the developing world. This session that we are starting with is on adaptation, with which will highlight the need to focus on productivity to ensure that livestock keepers and farmers can be productive enough to address their needs, while at the same time mitigating to reduce emissions, mitigating to adapt against the climate. We know now that it is possible, with a combination of genetics and good practices, to be able to reduce emissions by up to 30%. The session on climate finance will highlight the urgency to change the state of climate financing for livestock. Solutions exist, but business cases need to be better financed and to be better made, so that we can have wider scale and we can have better farming. And in addition, we also need to make evidence available on how we can actually do this. The session on anticipatory action will highlight the key needs and priorities for improved warning systems in drylands and pastoral settings. And here, pastoralists are our vital allies. They are the first responders to this climate adaptation process, because they live right in the middle of it, and they need to anticipate. But what are the anticipatory investments that are needed to enable them in these vulnerable drylands and rangeland communities to actually manage the transition that we are on? And it's a transition that must keep going regardless of what we do. Finally, the session on dietary justice will highlight the need for more nuance when discussing milk, meat, and eggs and their production patterns. It will also show the trade-offs and synergies as to how we incorporate animal source foods as part of food systems transformation in the global south. The sessions would not be possible without our alliance, Advancing Livestock for Climate. This brings together a group of like-minded organizations, many of you in this room, who are committed to transforming livestock systems to better achieve societal goals, while recognizing and reinforcing the role it can play in food systems transformation. I would like to particularly acknowledge ICRA, the Heifer International, Jamil Observatory, Mercy Corps, the Global Agenda on Sustainable Livestock, and SNV as our co-hosts for making it possible to organize these sessions today. Livestock needs to be part of the change, but it also needs to be seen as an integral part of food systems transformation, without which many livelihoods will not be possible, without which meeting nutrition needs in the global south would be compromised. So welcome to today's sessions and to this one in particular, and may the deliberations be successful.
Thank you, Namakulo. Okay. I think you emphasize this need for socially just system changes, also the double burden faced by livestock farmers and herders to decrease their environmental footprint, while also, while they're also negatively affected by climate change. I now would like to call on Simon O'Connell, our CEO from SNV, to make some opening remarks. Simon.
Thank you, Ilko. Good morning, all, ladies and gentlemen, Honourable Minister, friends. It's great to be with you all. We know there's lots of sessions going on, lots of choices, so we're packed room. Frankly, we're delighted, and thank you for joining us. Look, I thought I'd kick off maybe just with something that you weren't necessarily, or my team, certainly SNV, probably not expecting me to say, but let's just put it up front and center, putting farmers first. And in my notes, it was putting farmers first, walking the talk. We're thrilled you're with us, but we really shouldn't be holding this session, yeah? Walking the talk, putting farmers first, 40 years after Robert Chambers wrote all his books on putting the last first and putting the first last and whose reality counts. And those of you who've been doing this work for as long as I have, participatory rural appraisals and all that stuff, we've got to start walking the talk. It's on all of us. It's on all of us. And I wanted to acknowledge that equally from an SNV perspective, and I'm sure from many of the other partners in the room. So let's ask that hard question. We're asking it at SNV. What's our role? How do we derive legitimacy for our work as a global development partner? And the truth is, friends, if I may, it's about listening, isn't it? It's not about people like me coming along and giving long speeches. It's about really deeply, intentionally listening to those that we are working with and for. And if we don't get that right, if we don't listen well enough, if we continue to be simplistic in our framings of global north and global south, and we don't really acknowledge the diffuseness and the complexity of power, we will increasingly lose that all-important legitimacy. So that's really my main point. And I'm intent on listening through this session and through the rest of the day together. 3 key messages we did want to relay. Focus on those locally led principles, inclusivity and walking the talk, as I've just said. Let's really intently focus on those. Secondly, support making climate-smart technologies and financing more accessible for adaptation. And we've got beautiful examples. We have with the Netherlands Space Office, Dutch government, some of whom are in the room. René van Hel, thank you so much for joining us. Looking at how we get geospatial data, information on forage, fodder, transhumance corridors, where's the water, etc., through to agro-pastoralists in the Sahel, and doing that in partnership with mobile network operators. Other wonderful organizations have similar platforms. There are also platforms out there to link the access to information to financial services. We can do this at greater scale, and we must do it at greater scale, again, focusing on the inclusiveness around these technologies. It's easy to say digitalization is important. Can't argue with that. It's easy to say digitalization is a wonderful tool for development. It's much harder to really ensure that it's available. Inclusivity with all the very, very important gender dynamics around that to be aware of. And then the third one, establishing incentives to really shift, to move the needle, to focus on those more sustainable practices. So again, I'm the lucky person that gets to see lots of remarkable work all over the world. I've seen recently some of SMVs and partners work in southwest Nigeria in a place called Akure, working with cocoa producers. I've seen even some months ago, earlier in the summer, more saline-resistant rice being produced in Bangladesh in the context of increased salinity because of the climate crisis. I've seen some of our work with tea plantations in the west of Uganda, where they're looking to increasingly move to more sustainable production cycles. I've seen much of our work with livestock and the dairy sector, but all of it, every single place I've been lucky enough to see, I've left thinking, you know what? Part of the solution has to be paying a better price for more sustainably produced products. We have to acknowledge that. We have to recognize we need to get the right forms of financing in. We need to be able to trace products better so that we can really tell which ones are being produced more sustainably. And then we, lucky people like me, we need to be prepared to pay a bit more money for those more sustainably produced products. So those are my 3 points. You heard the first one, which is my main one. Let's walk the talk. I'm here to listen more than to talk, and delighted to be here. Thank you.
Thank you, Simon. Emphasizing the importance of locally led principles, also of inclusivity. That word inclusivity, farmers first, walk the talk, listening. I think this is a nice bridge to invite 3 farmer perspectives. Our session is, after all, called Farmers First, so let's listen to the farmers first. And we will start a set of interventions by farmer representatives. I'm pleased to welcome Manesh Nkata, President of the Farmers Union of Malawi. Can I ask you to come forward? Welcome. Then we have Babafemi Oyowole, Chief Executive Officer of the Pan-African Farmers Organization. Welcome. Please have a seat. And then we have online, we have Monica Yator from Kenya. She's a pastoralist farmer and founder of the Indigenous Women and Girls Initiative. So the overarching question is, how can we ensure the future of farming and food amidst the climate crisis? So can I ask Manesh Nkata, the President of the Farmers Union of Malawi, to share your reflections on this question in the context of Malawi. Over to you.
Thank you, and thank you so much for this opportunity, especially greetings from the home heart of Africa, which is Malawi. Today, I stand here to shed more light on the critical issues by the smallholder farmers. That is our backbone of our agriculture sector. Smallholder farmers are the livelihood communities tirelessly working in the nations to drive our economic diversities. To begin with, smallholder farmers are urgently required the improved and essential resources such as high-quality seeds, chemicals, but also in the modern equipments. These are fundamental inputs that are building the blocks and successive farming. Furthermore, we must address the pressing need of mechanisms to enable the farmers to access capital for business startups. Without adequate financial support, many farmers struggle to kickstart the venture. But it is so imperative that the state strengthen the mechanism to empower the smallholder farmers to contribute more sustainable than just growing the agriculture sector. One of the most grips in the current system's back is the insurance coverage of the smallholder farmers to leverage the vulnerable to the adversity of natural disasters. To mitigate the risks, I propose the establishment of special fund dedicated to the farmers, ensuring that the constituents of our contribution of the food system supply chain. Finance is undeniable crucial characters to the socio-economic development of our agriculture, both micro and macro levels. Our farmers acknowledge the transformation of the law of agriculture that plays the business maximizing the productivity of the limited resources. As we discuss for the future of the farmers, for the future of agriculture, let us recognize the law of finance and international production of sustainable entities for the value chains. In response, we need our farmers, I call upon financiers to develop a farmer-friendly financing. I argue our government and also partners for agriculture fund that can save collateral to these farmers. Remember, 80% of our farmers, they are smallholder farmers. So, to complement these efforts, development and investment agents could play a pivotal role by providing grants and also funds to support agriculture projects. The establishment of the farmer backbone supported donors, it could be meaning by different, ensuring that financial resilience for smallholder farmers. In conclusion on this, let us unite in our commitments to create a more robust and support environment of our smallholder farmers by addressing the immediate need for improved resources, access to capital, risk mitigation through insurance. We can put the way forward for agriculture sector, but also, before I conclude, as smallholder farmers, we call for the government to make sure that substantial investment in the provision of extensional services. This time around, the farming is changing every time. So the strategy to move the vision, ensuring that we have the good agriculture practices, right from the field to the table. Therefore, we revolutionize the food system in the vision of integrating extensional services into very, very fabric strategies aimed to enhance our food systems. So we empower them to ensure that we stay at risk on the technical and also the latest technologies by doing and empower the transfer innovations to our own farmers. So the shift towards new technologies and also the quest of food safety and the protection of natural environment, we must move beyond our traditional method to embrace the future of farmers, but also to the power that can observe the health and then the environment process. Continuance of the adoption of new technologies develops the pivot to the achievement of the food safety, but also the environmental sustainability. Government through our regions, economies, but also grouping should actively participate in the global discussions to facilitate the seamless transfer of information to food producers as farmers, especially the smallholder farmers. This exchange, it ensures us to make sure that we structurally change, but also increase demand on the contribution of the food safety. It is therefore very important to our governments, but also our stakeholders, to champion the promotion of these technologies through capacity building forums, to tailor-made our farmers, to tailor-made our primary producers. That should be encouraged to support the adaptation and leverage, but also the sustainable technologies in advancing. In concluding on this speech, ladies and gentlemen, but also honorable ministers, let us heal the core of our farmers for strategic and holistic approach that integrate extensional services, capacity building, but also agriculture workforce that can transform our technologies, but also collectively build our food systems through our own smallholder farmers. Thank you so much for listening.
Thank you, Manesh, for this perspective, comprehensive perspective from Malawi. I'd like now to call on Babafemi Oyewo, Chief Executive Officer from the Pan-African Farmer Organization. And Yeah, I think that's more an umbrella organization, right? So it's good to have a bit of a broader perspective on the challenges on the continent. Could you share the key challenges you see from your perspective? Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. And I really want to thank the organizers of this session for inviting PAFO to make a remark or give a perspective of what the farmers in Africa are facing. First of all, let me introduce PAFO. PAFO is a member-based organization, and we have 5 regional networks with 73 national farmers organizations in 48 countries in Africa, with a membership strength of 80 million farmers. So we are a well-representative organization. And as the theme is shown, what we are advocating for is that farmers should be put first. Farmers should be on the table discussing what the issues that affect them and giving their perspectives about the solutions to those issues, because they are the one who is going through those challenges. They are the one that are experiencing the issues. So they have the solution to those issues, but with the partners together, we can really come up with the appropriate way of implementing those solutions. So we see that when we talk of climate change, one of the issues that we see is the low, in fact, it comes to compound the low productivity of farmers in Africa. And if the productivity of farmers is very low, then we cannot shy away from the challenge of food insecurity in Africa and in the world. So we need support to increase the productivity of smallholder farmers. And as Manes has said, we need finance, access to finance. We need access to appropriate technology that will be adapted to local realities of where these farmers are working. And not only that, we see one of the offshoots of this climate change is the conflicts that it has brought between farmers and the herders. So those conflicts are also compounding the productivity of farmers, the production of farmers. So we need the policies by government to be able to resolve these conflicts that is affecting the productivity and the production of farmers, which is because the animals, they need water and they have to move around. And in the course of moving around, they destroy the crops of the farmers, and which cause for loss and damage for them. So we see that, and also we talk about billions of climate finance that is made available, the pledges that we always hear about, but these are not seen by the smallholder farmers. We just hear about billions, but we don't know where they are going. And it is our desire that this climate finance is very, we need them to be able to increase our productivity and also to be able to reduce food insecurity in Africa. So we also need the insurance, like she said also, we need insurance products that will help us to mitigate the effect of climate change among our members. But again, I'm always saying to our constituencies that we as farmers, we do not necessarily need to be emphasizing the problems. We should be emphasizing the solutions that we can bring to solve those problems. And that is what we attract the support of the development partners, even the government, and also the stakeholders in the food systems. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Baba Femi. Our third guest is Monica Yator. She's from Baringo, Kenya, and she's the founder of the Indigenous Women and Girls Initiative. Welcome, Monica. She will be joining us online. And especially I would like to ask you, also during the opening remarks, it was a reference to inclusion as a key element. So what challenges do you see around inclusion of women and girls in climate action around livestock and smallholder farmers? Over to you, Monica, and welcome.
Thank you so much. Good morning. And sorry, I didn't participate physically there. And just to mention the few challenges that we are seeing as women is the voices of grassroots women, especially knowing that 80% of food producers are women. And even at the COP, we are not seeing pavilions where women showcase their farm produce, the organic food that we produce in our farms. So maybe next time and going forward, this is the recommendation that we want to give to the stakeholders, that we need to have a pavilion for seeds, for food, for indigenous foods that we produce, and also enhance the voices of us representing even in decision-making environment and also in the negotiation rooms. The challenges, again, that we face as women is water scarcity, coming from an arid and semi-arid area, and also as an advocate for sustainable food transitioning among the indigenous people, the pastoralist community. We see our biggest challenge is water, and also the unpredictable weather patterns. As we speak now, most part of Rift Valley and Kenya is flash flood. We are seeing a lot of flooding. People have been moved to higher grounds, and the lower grounds have been degraded now. So all the soil is now moved to the Indian Ocean. So we are wondering, why is the government not keen on restoring this rangeland and also this dry land? All the government projects is focused in the rain-fed areas. They're talking now about planting 15 billion trees, but these 15 billion trees are planted in high areas, forgetting that there's a livelihood that is sustainable and there's a livelihood that is adapting to climate change through mobility. Pastoralism can only thrive when there is mobility. And even if you see in our policies, we don't have a policy that is advocating for sustainable pastoralism. Look at agriculture policies. No one is speaking about sustainable agriculture through pastoralism. So we are wondering, how will we even achieve these SDGs that we're talking about, SDG 15, yet we are still struggling to achieve SDG 1, which is hunger, and SDG 2, which is also poverty. Also, our women, they're struggling to feed their families. As we speak now, we don't have grains now because people are now struggling to see when will this rain stop so that they can go back and farm. And if they go back and farm, the land is already degraded. We have deep gullies now. So this land means that the pastoralist community will have to be moved to other areas unless we bring in our climate action universally to everybody, to also pastoralist communities. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Monica, and thank you for joining us online. So quite a number of challenges have been outlined, including the sustainable production, increasing the productivity, also the financial services, access to finance for smallholder farmers and livestock farmers. Also the services, extension services, and also inclusivity and inclusivity of the provision of products and services. So thank you. You're invited to go back to your seat. And I think these challenges, they obviously call for action. And we would like now to ask for 4 global initiatives to share their call to action with us. And I'd like to invite you to take your call to action.
Thanks, Elko. Yes, I'm Lee Winowicki. I'm also a soil scientist, and I lead the Global Research Program on Soil and Land Health at C4ECRAF based in Nairobi. I'll just follow up on what our previous speaker said. Pafo mentioned low productivity, soil degradation. Monica just mentioned gully erosion. We know that over a third of the Earth's surface is degraded. Third of our soils are degraded, unable to provide the critical ecosystem services. And hence enters the Coalition of Action for Soil Health. Our main goal is to scale healthy soil ecosystems globally by addressing implementation barriers, as you mentioned, policy opportunities, financing opportunities, and filling those key knowledge gaps that are still constraining us from implementing locally appropriate, inclusive, restoration, farmer-centered interventions on the ground. So my call to action, let's make sure soil health is on the agenda. Let's make sure it stays in the Emirates Food Systems Declaration, and let's build locally inclusive solutions from the soil up.
Thank you, Lee, for this short and powerful call to action. This is what we need. Then I'd like to invite Volley Carucci. He's representing the Resilience Local Food Supply Chain Alliance. So, Volley, what is your call to action? Over to you.
Thank you very much, and honored to be at this event. And just following on what Lee, I mean, my name is Volley Carucci. I'm the director of the Food Systems and Resilience Service in the World Food Programme, and very happy to represent the Alliance, the coalition on the Alliance on Resilient Supply Chain. Is also about resilient ecosystems that I'm representing here, and so actually linking the two alliances here. So putting farmers first. Farmers, actually, I'm a farmer back home in Italy too, a good one. And yeah, conservation agriculture since 1985 from my old man that was a soil scientist. So, but the pitch is really that if we want to put farmers first, we need to put soils and landscape first at scale. And 100 million hectares just in Africa being degraded, and really touching last speaker, we cannot just have sustainable, resilient food systems without tackling this issue at the source. And for the World Food Programme in particular, these are our main clients, particularly in dryland Africa. So our pitch is just to try to see, as we move along with this climate crisis, and is not anymore a risk, is a certainty, how we can actually reverse what is by many considered irreversible here. We have some experience in the Sahel, 300,000 hectares being rehabilitated in the last 5 years in 3,000 communities, more or less, across the G5 Sahel countries. Women engaged in compost making, producing over 60,000 tons of compost in areas that nobody said we were crazy. Actually, they did that, okay? Healing back the soil. That ancient body, organism that we belong, will be fixed by the young, okay? And this is something that we need to invest upon. We have a plan, an ambition that is a collective ask to all of partners to move into a Great Green Deal for resilient food systems, let's say. Linking the walls into a deal, linking the different type of programmatic integrated efforts as opposed to tools and segmented approaches, because as the Minister of Environment in Niger said, we need to move away from scattered, short-term, small-scale, and siloed approaches into integrated, holistic ones. We can rehabilitate in the next 10 years, 10, 15 million hectares across Africa, from the Atlantic to the Red Sea, okay? We can get millions of farmers back into the saddle and produce, and that is also replenishing social cohesion. The hidden R in resilience is relationships, is about, you know, greater social cohesion, pastoralists and agro-pastoralists, and farmers, re-establishing that transmission belt that for decades, centuries, have been the pattern, and now it's been destabilized. We can do it. We have a lot of great experiences. One thing that we are not doing well enough is building the evidence, documenting what works. So collectively, we need to do a much better job. Not from the soundbite perspective, not just from a few visuals, from actually scientific evidence, deploying universities. We partner with 16 African universities now to deploy young talents. You know, we call it our seedlings that will grow as baobabs and acacia albidas and abyssinicas. I've been spending 16 years in Ethiopia, working also with SNV in Bugna Wareda. I remember that. So Robert Chambers, you know, came, you know, when some of us were already doing some work. I'm old enough. So it's a good memories, but that legacy stays. And the invitation here is for collective action, for
not regenerative only, but really getting the regen linked to the social, restoration of ecosystems and livelihoods. Thank you.
Thank you, Volley, for this call to action. So we now heard a call to action from Soil Health, also from the Coalition on Local Food Supply Chains. Now I would like to invite Tara Shiham, the Director of Region 10, to provide a call to action. And Region 10 focuses on inclusive, holistic and equitable transition towards regenerative food system. Tara, what is your call to action?
Thank you, and thank you for the invitation as well. So you've already stolen a little bit of what I was going to say, but nonetheless give a brief overview of Regen 10. We're a multi-stakeholder global initiative, really bringing partners from across the food system and farmers and landscape stewards being central to this conversation to really understand what and how regenerative approaches can really build and deliver positive outcomes for people, nature, and climate. We're focusing our actions around inclusive and equitable transition towards that goal. And we're really excited this week to be sharing a number of the outputs from our partnership, including findings from outreach and visits to landscape initiatives across the globe, some preliminary analysis of the cost of transition and what the economics of what such a transition looks like at the landscape level. We have created a virtual map of existing landscape efforts, and this is part of Regen 10's efforts to build a growing network of regenerative practitioners across the globe. And very excitingly for us, and hopefully for you as well, we will be sharing this week, going live on our website as of today, a draft of a holistic, farmer-centric outcomes framework. Now, this is intended to understand changes over time at the farm and landscape level. It is intended to empower farmers and landscape actors in having conversations around the types of data to collect, what makes sense in the local context in which they work, and having these conversations with existing frameworks. Now you know that there are many frameworks out there looking at regenerative from different perspectives. They are largely practice-based, and ours intends to be outcome-focused. Many of the existing frameworks also focus largely on economic and environmental outcomes, and our intention is to really bring in socio-cultural indicators and bring social-cultural outcomes into the conversation equally with the other two that I just mentioned. So why are we sharing a draft? Well, for us, we are, to steal from Simon's intervention earlier, it's intentional listening. You put it better than I did on these cards, but that's what it is that we're doing. We are kicking off this week really a year-long process of consultation, of dialogue with food systems actors, and really smallholder farmers are so central, as you mentioned, as the backbone of our agricultural system to understanding, refining, and shaping this outcomes framework that we're developing for launch next year. So we're sharing a draft rather unconventionally, really to open it up, and that's our call to action. It's to open it up for you, for food systems actors, and very importantly, smallholder farmers and farmer organizations such as PAFO to engage on this framework and tell us how it can be better. Let us ground truth it and sense check it and make sure that this makes sense to a farmer, to a landscape steward. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Tara, for this call to action and also basically an invitation, right, to think along in shaping the outcome framework, food systems outcome framework, and also thank you for sharing your insights and your call to action on the regenerative landscapes. I now would like to invite Pablo Freire. Pablo Freire is the Executive Secretary of Redes Chaco. That's a multi-stakeholder platform of the Gran Chaco region. He's also the focal point of the Global Alliance of Pastoralisms, and he is a member of the steering committee of the Global Agenda for Sustainable Livestock on behalf of civil society movements. Pablo, over to you for your call to action.
Thank you. Well, I'm part of a pastoralist organization, so pastoralists today are a huge number. Okay, that's good. Yes, Redes Chaco, I say, is a huge platform of multi-stakeholders. We are a member of Pastor Americas, it's another regional organization, and part of a global alliance of pastoralists named WAMIP. we represent civil society movements at the global agenda for sustainable livestock, this one here. And we have to remark that pastoralism provides to the world milk, meat, fiber, and others, and especially in places where are not possible other productions. It's very important, this. Global Agenda is a partnership of livestock sector commitment with sustainable development of the sector. For us, pastoralists, it's important to be there because GAS is the opportunity to dialogue with others, academias, private sector, donors, governments, international organizations, FIO, IFAD. It's very, very, very important moment for us. As also, GAS has a system of action networks. For example, LEAP studied the performance, environmental performance of livestock, livestock for social development, different action networks that give us information, data to support our livelihood as part of the solution. Also incorporating best practice based on data and experiences. Dialogue is a great word for us, and let us propose solutions. For example, land tenure taking account our strategy of mobility, access to financing in different ways, access to markets, access to technical assistance, especially in remote areas. But all of these have to be be coordinated at grassroots level among governments, not government organizations, international organizations. They have to coordinate because it's very important. And I have some good news. 2 days ago, transhumance was declared intangible cultural heritage by UNESCO. Two days ago, no, in Roma, in FAO headquarters, was launched the International Year of Camelid for 2024, and in 2026 we're going to have the International Year of Ranchers and Pastoralists. Good news for us. So, thank you. Thank you, Meridian Institute, for Red Chaco, International Land Coalition, and IFAD to give us the possibility to be here to talk and to know a lot of amazing people. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Pablo. We have a bit of time for interaction with the floor. So if you have any views or perspective on these call to actions, or also have a question you would like to ask to one of the panel members here, please fire away. Is there a question you would like to ask? Oh, no, sorry. Any? Yes.
My question is for the Coalition on Soil Health. Since we are here talking about livestock, I wanted to hear if you could say something about how you see the integration of livestock into the coalition efforts to become an integral part of improving soil health.
That's an easy one. It is. It's essential, actually. And one of the really local solutions for farmers, I'm based in Kenya. Most Kenyans have at least one cow. 80% of Kenya is rangelands. And composted manure is a fabulous source of organic material and nutrients to farms. I hope everyone here knows that rangelands, grasslands, and savannas also have huge potential to store carbon in the soil. Why? Grassroots are 4 times deeper than what's above ground. And they have annual roots that decompose every year, just contributing continuously to bring organic matter into the soil. So absolutely, livestock is a critical component of building healthy soil ecosystems. And if you visit our website, Coalition for Action on Soil Health, you'll see that we're working across all these ecosystems: forests, wetlands, mangroves even, pastoral systems, agricultural systems, because it is critically important that we start raising the awareness of soil and healthy soil for all the SDGs and our food and nutrition security. Elko's trying to grab the mic from me.
No, thank you. That's great. Anybody else? Yes.
So great. Thanks a lot for really excellent call to actions. Maybe one question I would ask is, these calls to action seem like they are vital and critical in any case within, let's say, a normal climate framework, right? So one that has its typical ups and downs. So we're talking about being in a climate crisis framework. Are there any specific challenges or opportunities that your call to actions would face within this climate crisis kind of situation? Thanks.
Thank you. Who would like to respond to that? Wally, yeah?
Thank you. Very good question. A few days ago, when we were discussing about food security issues with colleagues also from FAO, it was very clear that just in Africa, I think about 80% of the crops are maize, rice, wheat, not originated from the continent. And 1.5 degrees temperature means 30% increased water needs just for evapotranspiration. Let alone what landscapes are not reacting anymore because super exposed to, a lot of climate intensities, erraticity over time and space, poor distribution, but also huge amount of runoff as a consequence of the depletion of the biomass and compactions and overexploitation. So we are really dealing with an emergency in terms of what is awaiting farmers. So investments needs to be on restoration, but also post-harvest losses. West Africa alone last year lost 4 million tons of produce, 20% of grains, 40% of tubercules and tubers, 60% of fresh foods. The value chains are not equipped sufficiently with technologies and techniques, solar energy and AI, ancient innovation, for those who thought that, yes, ancient innovation, because there are incredible, the Pritzker Prize, the architecture prize, the Nobel Prize in 2021 was won by a Burkina Faso individual. You enter into some of these buildings, it's like a refrigerator, it's like an air-conditioned structure, using local materials, using aeration, exposure, different modalities to build storage, to build houses, to build warehouses, even quite big, classrooms, right? Everything. So we need to, throughout the chain, follow the foods. The food system is really, you think yourself as a little grain, that gets into a soil, hard compacted, can't get out, being affected by rain, sweating a lot for 10 days because it doesn't come next, okay? Being then harvested and dropping with your little brothers, on the soil, 20%, finish into a warehouse that is full of insects and pests because of the high level temperature. I'm mimicking now a grain, and then ending up with aflatoxins into, a dish of of a consumer. That's not the way we need to go about it. So along those segments, crossing a hostile territory, what shield we need from anticipatory action, social protection, adaptive social protection mechanisms into land rehabilitation whilst we rebuild back, not better, forward, really much better. And really moving into this new consciousness, this new market of really regenerative ecosystem-based approaches. It's not just a word. It should be really substantiated by what Lee was saying, by what you were saying, really in terms of getting soil health back, right? And this is something that we can go at scale, because if people in the Sahel in extreme conditions are doing, if Ethiopian farmers for decades have been doing in terms of the most incredible, restoration ever seen in the continent in decades, 5.6 million hectares rehabilitated since 1992, okay, patiently. More than 200 billion stones being moved to do terracing, these are things that happen in reality. Are we putting this into the global agenda and visualizing that effort? So I think we need to bring things together. The Resilient Supply Chain Alliance is trying to really look into local foods, nutritious foods, so for local production, for local consumption, the post-harvest losses, the link with the regeneration and the links also with youth and women as protagonists of that change. Because until you're going to have 90% of the land that is largely used by men or owned by men, whilst they are protagonists for 80% of what we eat, we have an issue here. So let's work together on towards those ends. Thanks.
You'd like to make a...
Well, 1 minute. I mean, in terms of climate changes, there is a lot of scientific information, very complicated for us, and predictions about that sometimes in the grassroots we never know. So the dialogue, the relationship with academia is very important to help us to understand what's going to happen. Because ancient people say, now I don't know what I have to do with the climate. Before, years ago, I know how to do, but now I don't know. And with talking with academia, we learn about what's going to happen in the Chaco, for example, and how to increase our water reserves, different strategies becoming in changes, but in adaptation, that's what's coming. And this relation, I feel that is very, very important, a dialogue among different stakeholders.
Thank you, Pablo. So we heard calls to actions from the Coalition for Action on Soil Health, from Regen 10 for the Resilient Supply Chain Alliance, and finally from the Global Agenda for Sustainable Livestock. Let's give them one more hand of applause. Thank you. Thank you. You're invited to take your seat. So we heard about the challenges from the farmers. We've started with that farmer perspective. Then we heard the coalitions with their call to action in terms of how do we globally, collectively also move this agenda forward. We now have a panel, and with that panel we would like to deepen the conversation a bit in terms of what is slowing the action down, and also, more importantly, how to move forward. So I would like to invite three panel members. First of all, Mr. Abdullah Ulega. Mr. Abdullah, welcome. Minister for Livestock and Fisheries from Tanzania, and welcome, Honorable Mr. Andrew Moot. Andrew Moot, Lead Agri-SME Development and Innovative Financing of the African Development Bank. Welcome, Andrew. And then thirdly, we have Hixonia Nyasulu, the Vice Chair of the AGRA Board of Directors. Oh. And represented by, sorry. Yes. Sorry, welcome. Yes. Yeah. So, first of all, a question to the Honourable Minister. We heard about these challenges, right? We heard about the proposed call to actions. So, from your perspective, what are the priorities for sustainable production practices in livestock and agriculture in Tanzania? Over to you.
Okay. Thank you very much, moderator. And thank you very much, everyone in the room right here. Good morning to you all. Let me take this opportunity to say a few things about what we are thinking in Tanzania. First of all, we believe that the African continent is responsible for just under 3% of these historic global emissions. That is number one, and we should not be responsible for the emission from the global north or other countries. And in order to feed growing demand from animal proteins, we need sustainable ways to improve productivity and at the same time protect the environment. So I call for greater investment. This is what we are looking for in improving productivity of livestock, which will lead to better adaptability and resilience against climate shocks, and also mitigate emissions. We also need investment in services and insurance systems to protect farmers from the environment. We would like to see innovative programs like ILRI's index-based livestock insurance program coming to Tanzania, which I don't know, who is this Dr. Mude? Who is Dr. Mude, by the way? You know, you read issues from literatures and experts are writing, then you don't know. Congratulations, Dr. Mude. Good to see you right here. Yes. So you pioneered in the past, and farmers deserve protection from an uncertain future. So we are looking to see this is happening in Tanzania as well. And we call for the partnership to get this done with organizations like ILRI, SNV. I think SNV personnel are right here. SNV. Aha! So you can see now the moderator is from SNV, and the World Bank to help support to transition to productive, sustainable, and health livestock. We also need to focus on feed production and improve genetics of animal breeds if we are going to be able to improve productivity. In Tanzania, we are focusing on building a better tomorrow. We have a legacy program led by our president, Dr. Samia Suluhu Hassan, to empower young women and men through livestock sector, especially in fattening program. So this is a fattening for cattle and poultry, and now we're heading for goats and sheep as well. For instance, we work with ILRI on improved genetics and AKM Glitters Company. We have a local company in Tanzania that ILRI, they are working together as the private sector support. We have developed a unique to use recent female graduates to support brooding and extension service to help women chicken raisers to improve production and marketing. That is what we are doing in Tanzania. So now we have the solution to, but we lack investment. So to put farmers first, we need investment in sustainable livestock system in Tanzania and Africa can provide a triple win. Number one, we see improving people's livelihoods and nutrition to meet increasing demand. And number two, adapting to climate threats such as heat stress, drought, and flood. And number three, mitigating greenhouse gas emissions. Thank you, moderator.
Thank you very much, Honorable Mr. Andrew, we heard about financing, investment, insurance. So from the bank's perspective, could you share your insight on climate finance, climate adaptation for smallholders and SMEs? Over to you, Andrew.
Thank you very much. It's great to be here. It's a friendly place, I can see. Thank you, Mr. Minister. But just before I joined the bank, I spent a good long time at ILRI, where with colleagues there, we developed the index-based livestock insurance. And we were listening to farmers and pastoralists in order to do that. So it's great to hear that all the farmers that spoke today all talked about the importance of insurance. Yeah. And they talked about the importance of finance. And so now I'm sitting at the African Development Bank, and there's a real link, actually, between insurance and finance that is very important for smallholder farmers. And it really all is about risk. When we started the livestock insurance program, the mandate was to look at pastoral keepers, extensive pastoral systems, and see what the biggest problem they were facing. And it's the loss of their biggest asset and income source from droughts. Loss of livestock, the boom and bust cycle. That is a manifestation of a climate risk. All right, and that is getting more and more. But this climate risk is manifested across the food system to farmers and so on. And for finance, why we thought of insurance as a solution, because the insurers, they like risk, they understand risk, they go toward risk, and they've learned how to package it and effectively manage risk. But financiers don't like risk, right? They are. And so, for example, you have banks. It's classified at AAA rating. It's very low risk bank. So a bank like the African Insurance Industry, which is a development bank and has commitments to the farming system, to farmers, to development, to jobs, and so on, in the presence of climate change, which brings an additional layer of risk. That makes financing, providing resources to farmers and the ecosystem of suppliers of seed and information and services that they need a lot more difficult to come by. So how do we pair insurance, which understands risk, with bankers who don't, to ensure, first of all, we provide targeted climate protection across the farming system, livestock keepers, farmers, and the ecosystem that supports them, but also to de-risk the provision of finance, so finance can flow. So I guess based on the experiences that I've had with insurance, and also a lot of work that the bank has been doing, the African Development Bank has been doing with a range of insurance programs. You might have heard about the ADRIFI, the Africa Disaster Risk Financing Initiative, which provides climate insurance solutions at the sovereign level. But we now want to take this down all the way to the farmer and make sure we are providing tailored solutions. So we have been working on a program that was unveiled in Nairobi at the Africa Climate Summit. We call it ACRIFA. It's the Africa Climate Risk Insurance Facility for Adaptation. We showcased it here just on Saturday with our president, the executive director of WFP, and a lot of the partners who we're going to need to develop. So insurance companies, data is a big part of it. We've been talking about data and technologies. You can't develop precise targeted insurance solutions without very good data. And also you can't get the right resource to the quantum of financing, that climate financing that is needed, without good information. So let me also just talk about that, and I think it relates to the question I was asking. So what is different within a climate regime? So we're sitting here at COP, and we're hearing there's a lot of success at generating quite a huge amount or volume of resource. That is climate resource. So it's going to be directed to initiatives and operations that can demonstrate that they have some, whether it's adaptation or mitigation or loss and damage. How are you going to do that as recipients who want to, or insurance companies, for example, from the point of view of this ACRIFA facility? The insurance companies that are deploying climate insurance solutions will need to show that this is either shifting farmer behavior, protecting them in some way, mitigating their risk, adaptation, or providing loss and damage response to climate additionality. We will need data for that. We will need data that is quick, that is almost real time, and this is where technology become important. So a data pillar is quite important for what we are trying to do. But it's an ambitious facility, about $1 billion, and this is just to catalyze and de-risk private sector coming in. So maybe that's a final point I'll make is, when you hear the quantum of resource that is required to transition us to a climate resilient world, it's quite significant. You can look at different statistics. Let's just say in Africa we had adaptation about 600 billion to 2030. Of this, there's no way that public sector funds or public sector and donor philanthropy can do it. We need the private sector. How are you going to bring the private sector in? Private sector doesn't like risk, right? So you need to figure out a way to de-risk them in the same way with financing and so on. And we believe that well-designed, targeted insurance solutions, working with the range of primary insurance across the African continent. There are about 500 of them. Some localities are more advanced than others. This is where also there will be resources in this facility to help build capacity, build regulation, and the like. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrew, outlining the importance of insurance, also of the private sector engagement and investment, and also the importance of data, proper data to base all these decisions on. Over to Boas Kezire. Boas is the head of policy and food systems with AGRA. And AGRA aims to improve the adaptation of agri-food and smallholder systems to climate change so that smallholders, farmers can increase their resilience to shocks. So, Boas, what is slowing us down and how do we move forward? What's your perspective on this? Over to you.
Thank you very much. I really need to appreciate my colleagues on the panel that have fired up this discussion. I think before we talk about what is slowing us down, we need to first appreciate that there has been progress, especially that is coming from the farmers. There has been a lot of efforts that farmers are putting in place to make sure that change happens. But there are a lot of headwinds. Headwinds in the sense that we see climate challenges stopping down and not allowing production productivity to increase. The yields that farmers have realized in the recent past have been relegated to less than normal. 1.8 metric tons of maize per hectare, now reduced almost 1 metric tons per hectare. If you look at the whole global statistics, they are showing that we are slowing down. And not because farmers are not putting in enough efforts, but there is a lot of headwinds that are challenging us. The other challenges, you've seen them in the recent past, COVID-19 hit, disrupting the markets and transfers of value chains. That was also part of the slowing down efforts. But I really want to join the team that has been calling out for action. And I think the Minister, you've made a lot of good comments. One of them is increasing investments. Investments are not sufficient. Farmers are putting their own resources, private sector is investing, but the investments are not enough. And I know that institutions like the African Development Bank, the World Bank are putting in money, but that's not enough. They need to find ways of how best we can rechannel these resources to best targeted priorities. The other key thing is what came from my best colleagues. We need a lot of innovation. I like the point you mentioned around ancient innovation. I think there has been traditional knowledge that has been neglected. During the times I was growing up in southwestern Uganda, I used to see a lot of farmers going into the wetlands, cutting a lot of biomass, mulching the plantations and increasing yields. Today you no longer find those kind of biomass in the rural areas. Forests have been cut, the wetlands have been eroded, and therefore we see what is happening in terms of climate agenda. So we need to go back and really bring the innovations back to scale, including the most latest innovations, artificial intelligence, machine learning. All these have to work together. You cannot just begin to adapt to new technologies without going back to the ancient knowledge. Very good point that you mentioned. So I think moving forward, one is calling upon the global financing system to look at the way we are investing in terms of how to increase production productivity. Two, we need to make sure that we are taking cutting-edge knowledge and be able to make sure that we are bringing on board what is required and investing in the right choices. Countries have to come up, have made a lot of efforts. We like the efforts that countries are making in terms of putting the right visions, strategies, and plans. The Building Back Better for Tanzania is one of the good examples. We have similar examples in the continent. We also call upon the government themselves to increase and strengthen the policy environment. Because the private sector wants to invest more, but there are a lot of disruption in the policies and the regulations. We need to make sure that that is put in place such that we can actually catch up with the pace that the world is changing. It is so fast, we need also to move faster than that. Thank you.
Thank you, Boas. The floor is open. I don't know if there's any participants who want to make a remark or to ask a question. Yes, over to you.
Thank you very much to the distinguished panelists. My question is more of a challenge that I hope you can address. And it's, I think in the previous panel, we were told that we need the research to help us move forward. Now that research can harness those ancient innovations that we have left behind, look at them, and then use our current science to improve upon them. And then alongside with that, then we can also start looking at what else can we do, which are the newer innovations now. Challenge is we're not investing enough in research to be able to actually do that. And so we have Minister of Agriculture, we have the African Development Bank, we have a policy specialist on board. What do you see that we can do to encourage more investments from our governments, from African governments, for example?
Thank you. Who would like to respond to that? Yes.
I worked with the Ministry of Finance in the National Planning Commission in Uganda. And when I was there, I noticed, and prior to me going to the Ministry of Finance, I was working in the Ministry of Agriculture. The language that the Ministries of Agriculture were speaking to Ministry of Finance was not speaking to what finance was looking for in the sector. What is the kind of growth are you going to bring to the sector, to the economy? So what am I saying? We need to start by the government setting the clear visions, strategies, and plans that are going to bring back the returns on investments. That will attract money from own governments themselves before you begin to look at the partners. 2, development partners, and the African Development Bank is here and many other partners are here. They want to see the robust vision and strategies that are clear, and also the command of knowledge in terms of coordinating the sector. And here I'm talking about the government themselves. That can actually crowd in resources. In the work that we do at AGRA, we've worked with some of the governments, designing a flagship where development partners have been saying, we have our own resources, but we don't see the clarity of the vision where these resources are going. But in some of the governments like Ghana, like Tanzania, BBT, recent at the AGRF, the Food Systems Forum, BBT was able to mobilize over 600 million because of the clarity of the vision and the strategy, without which you cannot call for resources. Nobody will go into invest in your idea unless it's written down and it's clear about the targets and the requirements. For me, that's just one initial area where we can attract more money.
Thank you, Mr. Bose, and I think you said it all from my thinking, actually. And we're trying to make sure that we are investing. We, from the government ourselves, to take an example from my own country, Tanzania. Look, we before the financial year 2022-2023, that is 2020-2021, the budget for agriculture was only about 200 billions to 300 billion Tanzanian shillings. And now we're talking about 1 trillion point 2 Tanzanian shillings. So you can see the increase, the number, how increased, you see. So that shows the some of the seriousness to see the transformation, to see the changes. And actually, Boaz mentioned that it was only 600 millions, but it was more than that, actually. Okay. Yes, yeah, it was more than that. Our target is about 1.8 billion US dollars for about 7 years. And to the AGRF meeting, actually, we had the pledges and all these about not less than 1 billion US dollars. So you can see this is because of the vision, of the direction that the government have and attracts more people to see here, if you invest, it's going to be paying back like this. Thank you.
Yeah, maybe if I may, this is a very good question and a very important one, because I think, well, I have some bias also because I have a research background, but really we're not going to meet the objectives that we need to meet with SDGs and Paris alignment climate without making sure that the right research is done, that it's funded, and that it gets to gets to its target. So there's of course the basic research, which maybe is not as easy to convince our government or so on. I mean, but there may be other players to do. So let me just speak directly to what I imagine we can get more creative about in let's say, relationship with the AFDB and with governments and so on. So before I was moved to build the SME and innovative financing, climate financing space, my first position at the FDB was managing the agricultural production and sustainability division. And there was the livestock flagship. And we actually worked with ILRI to develop an operational livestock master plan, in which we brought researchers from, so ILRI chaired a program that had FAO, I think WFP and several other technical, I think there was private sector. And this was developed so that, you know, when the bank has an operation, and has an operation for a country, that's where the real resources are. And we find that we don't have the CG system helping to provide, written into those projects, first of all, helping to design them effectively, and then when they're being implemented, being a part of the implementation process to make sure that the research is flowing in the right place and so on. So we all know the TAT program. So TAT program is unique and independent, and that, I guess, goes directly to the CG. But where the resources, where I think the integration and synergy would be, is if there was a way to integrate and execute on that. And there are already some ideas. They need to be taken forward. I think maybe some of the one CGR reorientation that also brings the government involved in some way. Some of the CG institutes have their ministers sitting on the board. I think those discussions should be happening. And they might be able to receive more traction if you could go to a minister with a local level partner, a university, an agricultural university, and show that any investment also in the CG will trickle down to building the agricultural capacity for R&D in the country. Thank you.
I think we need to close. Yeah, thank you very much, Andrew. I think we're coming to a close. Thank you for the panel. You can take your seat, please. Yeah, I would like to invite Marilia Bejeira. She's the Chief of Programs of the IKEA Foundation to share some key takeaways. We heard from the farmers, we heard from the coalitions, we heard some perspective from policymakers. What are your key takeaways, Marilia? We're looking forward to get... sorry, you need to make a long way here. Yes, over to you.
Thank you so much. Hi, everybody. Good morning. So first, I just wanna say thank you to Ilko and Simon and the SNV team, not just for the invitation to be on a panel, but for your partnership. Simon, we're gonna be bookends, kind of say the same thing at the beginning and at the end. First, I mean, the only reason why I have this mic in my hands is because I'm a part of an organization that has been helping fund some of this work. So I want to acknowledge I'm not a farmer. My lived experience is limited in this space, right? But I want to just refer back to a few things. I think one, fundamentally, I am here to learn like you and to listen like you, and I've learned a lot today. I grew up in Brazil, in actually one of the poorest countries of Brazil, and I remember very vividly, you know, being a young kid, and when it didn't rain, we had a lot of people come from the country to the city, looking for food. And so when I hear the need for us to really think about the farmer first, you know, that experience really comes to me. The need for food security, the need for us to have productive, healthy soil, the need for us to have good relationship with land is really important. The other thing I've learned today is what I'm hearing is that access to finance, access to capital directly, access to insurance services so you can retain the wealth you're building along the way is important. Access, catalyzing private sector investment is important. And here again, I want to bring an experience from Brazil. Unfortunately, Brazil is a country where we have a well-developed private sector in the agriculture sector. And is still a place where we have growing hunger. I mean, we had managed to bring it down, but now it's like up towards 15% of the people. It's millions, tens of millions of people in Brazil are still hungry. So how might we drive private sector engagement and capital in a way that really reaches all the way down to farm level, to the farmer, to the smallholder farmers, where it needs to be. And we are here again to learn from you, push us, as I've been saying in almost every panel I've been in. We are very far. We are not close, but we want to be allies. We want to be a part of the journey, and not to forget the point around evidence and of what works and the learning that can be shared, and and the context-specific learning that can be shared. Something that we're also very, excuse me, interested in supporting. So to that end, bring us with you. We'll be there with you along the way in the learning, and really seeking to be an ally in this journey, because we do know food systems are not serving you, are not serving the planet. So how can we go on this journey together to make it work for all of us? Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you, Marilia. You're looking for... Yeah. Oh, sorry. Then finally, some closing remarks from René van Hel, the Director of Inclusive Green Growth of the Netherlands Ministry of Foreign Affairs. René.
Yes, thank you so much. And I would like to say to all the honorable panelists, but especially also to the minister, you take the words out of my mouth. When the minister said, it cannot be true that the 100 poorest countries who are only responsible for 3% of the greenhouse gases have to deal with this. And that's actually why I'm here. So when I say you take the words out of my mouth, many also think, put your money where your mouth is. Because that is probably a very logical corollary of if you say all these beautiful things. So yes, it is about pastoralists, and it's about farmers, and it's about making sure that we do not forget how important the smallholder farmers are, but more importantly also how we make sure that they can develop and get richer, and that we all get richer. And if I look at those 100 poorest countries, there's an incredible development challenge, which is exciting, which needs finance. Increasingly what I see if I go to events, but also in my own government, and if I see what we have done wrong in the Netherlands, because we did things right, but we also do a lot of things wrong, is that there is sort of this trinity, which some might even find holy, but which I find conceptually interesting, and which is actually very easy to implement, because we've heard so many good examples, and that is the trinity of development, fighting climate change, and preserving biodiversity. And in order to do so, we really have to move fast, and we need so much innovation. So I really hope that we will all allow ourselves to get out of our comfort zone. I like to be out of my comfort zone, but I also call on all the organizations that we work with, get out of your comfort zone, whether it's the IKEA Foundation, but also the African Development Bank, the World Bank, IFDC, our lovely friends of SNV, all. And if you say, where do I put my money? Where's that money? And where's my mouth? So during the last month, I signed off on a replenishment for IFAD, and that is a 150 million, because that focuses so beautifully on the smallholder farmers. But please keep them accountable, because they're a large organization and they need to do a better job. It's nice that they get our money, but they cannot be arrogant, and they have to listen very carefully to you. The other organization that we love to work with is it's a platform organization, because we need more knowledge in order to innovate. That is CGR. So there we put 110 million euros in, and then and also to CGR we say, do not only look at fancy precision farming stuff, but also look at the ancient innovations. So let's make that part of our agenda, the ancient innovations. Moreover, we spoke about soil health. So we started this program now in West Africa, 100 million, together with SNV on soil health. So that's a big one, and that's also with an organization run by, called IFDC. And so I also want to underline that whereas in my country we use too much fertilizer, I generally see in Africa there's really leeway for more. So that's also one of the reasons why we team up with IFDC. But the same goes here. Keep them accountable. Next to that, we also understand that loss and damage is a big thing. So we contributed to the establishment of the fund, but there's also this very interesting organization. It's called Africa Risk Capacity, and they're based in Africa, so we're also providing them with 25 million. Wrapping up, in March we were the co-host of the UN Water Conference, and that was to emancipate water out of its lovely bubble with all these WASH experts and people talking about water management. Because at the end of the day, the way we deal with water is going to be critical of whether we will succeed in more development. Because increasingly, water is a scarce resource. And just the very fact that oftentimes we just treat water as if it's for free and if it's flowing always from like heaven, from manna from heaven, it's not true. So please make sure that in your planning that there is also a not only sustainable but also durable supply of water. Rain patterns change, rivers change. It's not God-given, it's mismanaged by mankind, and we've even been so good at it that we now even have to change the hydrological cycle. So shame on us, but also we're all intelligent people here around in the room, so I'm sure we can do better. That's at least the message that I have for my own country. I don't have that message for you. The message for my own country is I can do better, and I'm happy and ready to partner with you. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, René. And with that, we've come to the end of this session. I hope you enjoyed it. I think it was very rich, different perspectives. Thank you for all distinguished panelists, and I hope you enjoy the rest of the day. Thank you.